Good Saturday morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, over the past year and a half, the term infection has been used heavily in reports by the news media when describing the COVID-19 pandemic. But there's another dangerous infection out there. Now, this one not affecting our bodies, but our personal lives as well as business and industry. We're talking about ransomware and how criminals use this technology to infect our computer systems. The malicious software, according to officials, is designed to block access to a computer system until a sum of money, a ransom, is paid. Nationwide, we've seen billion-dollar companies crippled by ransomware hits. Last July, CWT Global, a U.S. travel services company, set a world record for the largest ransom payment ever made when it handed over $4.5 million in Bitcoin to a ransomware criminal gang. An attack on the Colonial Pipeline triggered gas shortages, and there was a malware attack against JBS that jeopardized the nation's meat supply. Now, no one is safe. In recent weeks, by the way, the Mobile County government acknowledged that a May 24th cyber attack may have compromised sensitive employee information. A cybersecurity expert reviewed a ransomware demand from a group who claims that they are responsible for the attack. And while the government cannot verify their claims, they did tell Fox 10 News investigative reporter Brendan Kirby the threats sounded plausible. Federal government officials are now actively pursuing these criminal computer gangs. The FBI has this piece of advice: if you believe that you are a victim of a cyber attack.
What if you do get infected with ransomware? Call your local FBI field office to report a problem. The FBI does not condone paying the ransom. If you pay the ransom, you're encouraging the adversary to continue infecting other victims. And even if you pay, there's no guarantee that you'll regain access to your data. Remember, your voice matters, so protect it.
Ransomware, well, is often spread through phishing emails or if a user unknowingly visits an infected website. Even plugging in a thumb drive that you may have found could cost your company millions. William Bill Oppenheimer, president of Enveloc Incorporated, is our guest this morning. Enveloc is a computer backup company with nearly 3 decades of experience in the business. When Perspectives continues, we explore the personal and financial damage that these ransomware criminals inflict on Americans. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back to Perspectives this morning. Our very special guest, William Bill Oppenheimer, president of Enveloc Incorporated, and we're talking about ransomware. Bill, thanks for joining us this morning. It has been in the news a lot lately as we look at 2 major companies in America affected by this ransomware problem. We're talking about both from the meat end and, of course, the Colonial Pipeline, another major story that in both cases affecting us in our pocket as civilians here who are not having to deal with the ransomware issue, but in effect we are dealing with it as a country now and as a population. Let's first get into the definition of ransomware and what exactly it is for those who aren't quite sure what's happening.
Well, sure, Eric. Ransomware is a type of computer virus. It's malware. It's software that is designed to attack. And it is loaded onto your PC either by accident when you click the wrong place in an email, or the ransomware people might actually breach your network and put the ransomware on your system from abroad. However it's delivered to you, ransomware seeks network shares, seeks devices on your system, such as your computer hard drive, or maybe a server hard drive that you share space on. And it goes about encrypting all of the data that it wants to steal. Once the data is encrypted, it alerts the user that his data has been ransomwared, and the user cannot read his own information unless he pays a ransom. And even paying a ransom, he may not get the key when we get into that later.
Right. And you never know exactly where you're going in that end. Give us an idea of how people respond to you when they have been attacked by the ransomware and they're letting you know they need your assistance, your company, to get involved to correct the situation. How do they respond? What are they saying? What are they thinking when this has happened to them?
Well, I mean, we've had people call up in tears. They can't get into their system, and they're afraid that they've lost all their information. Fortunately, when they use our company, we keep a secure backup of all their information, and that is the fail-safe against ransomware, a good backup.
We're going to talk more about some of the things that can be done as we get into this. How common is this? We hear about it lately with the major attention due to a pipeline serving most of the eastern half of the United States, so a major issue. But is this happening to a lot of smaller companies too?
It is indeed. In fact, it started out mainly with smaller companies. They were sent phishing emails. That's spelled phishing emails. Emails designed to lure you into clicking on a link that downloads the virus to your machine. And they were sent out to millions and millions and millions of businesses. So a few of them would click and they'd get the ransomware. And then the criminals who were organizing this, almost always from overseas and almost always from either Russia or one of the countries that used to be in the Soviet Union, the criminals would demand a ransom to be paid in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the currency of crime.
Oh my goodness. Well, when you look at what's happening with this, and you mentioned criminals, that word, is it a crime? There are people who are still, they don't seem to be specific about, yes, this is a crime. Is it a crime?
Oh, it's absolutely a crime. It's interfering with the operation of a computer. I know there are state laws against it, and there are federal laws concerned with it.
Now, what about the aspect of paying a ransom? Because has that been put into that same category now, or is it still needing new interpretation?
I'm not sure, Eric. It seems to me that if someone is holding your property for ransom, you would have the right to redeem it, even though it was an illegal act. The illegality, it seems to me, would be on the part of the encryptor, not the victim of the ransomware.
You mentioned the phishing aspect, and a lot of companies now are helping their employees prepare for things like this because they do tests, they give us training, and they want us to be aware of this. Let me ask you about a couple of other things that people are throwing out and wondering if this is also a vehicle through USB, can it infect your phone? What about Wi-Fi?
All of the above. One of the favorite tricks of espionage agents some years ago, and probably still today, is they would just leave an infected USB drive in a parking lot and hope that one of the employees would pick it up, take it inside, and out of curiosity see what's on it. As soon as it gets plugged in, the virus goes to work. Now, that could be a ransomware virus or some other type of virus, but the technique of dropping a flash drive in the parking lot is not new.
Right. And you mentioned that Wi-Fi and phones are also a part of this access to gaining access to our computers.
Well, I'm sure that it's possible to access computers in that fashion, but I don't think it's as common as phishing. Now, if you're referring to Wi-Fi in a coffee house, yes, that is commonly a very common means of obtaining someone's password for access to a system, because the signal between the computer and an unsecured Wi-Fi is easily read by any number of devices. So a bad actor in a coffee house could be listening in, quote unquote, listening in on activity between someone else's computer and a server that that other person is connected to.
You mentioned about the USB, and we use the term, it quickly spreads into the computer. How quick, when we talk about, give us an idea of how quick this happens once you are opening that door for their access?
Once the door is opened, it is nanoseconds. And what takes the time, in the case of ransomware, is for the ransomware to actually encrypt the data that the criminal wants to ransom. That does take some time, and fortunately, there are computer programs that are designed to be alerted to that activity and stop it. If you have a large business, you probably have one of those protection programs, such as made by, I'll come up with the name in a minute.
Well, you know, we're going to talk more about this in our second interview block this morning. You're giving us some great education here and information for a lot of people who have been wondering, and they don't hear quite enough on the news about how this happens, how it works. And then we're going to talk about what can we do as well to prevent this from happening and to hopefully protect our personal as well as our businesses from ransomware getting a lot of attention in the news here lately. Our guest this morning, William Bill Oppenheimer from Envelope Incorporated. We'll talk more on Perspectives this morning about ransomware in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives. Our very special guest this morning, William Bill Oppenheimer. We're talking about ransomware. And Bill, give us an idea. We talked earlier about how frequently this is happening now. Give us an idea of how these incidents have actually picked up steam the last 3 years also.
They really have. They're more and more each day. And additionally, the ransomware criminals are targeting more and more valuable companies, such as the Columbia Pipeline, such as the state purveyors.
Yes. Well, looking at some of the information you provided for us, the incidents went from like just shy of 1,500 in 2018, and then in the year 2020, last year, we're talking about almost 2,500 incidents, and the money amounts going from $3 million to $29 million in losses for companies. Now, is this all of it or just what's reported?
I think that's a tiny fraction, Eric, because I don't think very many people report everything to the FBI. There's an interagency report from the Justice Department and CIA and some others that says there are an estimated 4,000 attacks daily, which is a much larger number than the FBI is reporting.
You know, these dollars and cents are amazing. In some of my research, I came across one company, a U.S. travel services company called CWT Global, and at the time, it was a world record back last year, over 4.5 million in Bitcoin that they had to pay to a ransomware gang.
I have actually helped people who wanted to be our customers recover from ransomware, and it is an ugly business.
Well, when you look at these numbers, I'm telling you, it's amazing. And as you were saying, though, it's not just the big high-profile businesses. We're also talking about school systems, hospitals, businesses where it's important that they have access to their information.
That's true, and municipalities are also a big target. I've spoken with the mayor and with some of his IT people, and they're very much on top of it. We protect a number of small towns throughout Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to bring back to them all the data that was being held for ransom without them having to pay a single penny.
Now, those are good stories that we need to hear more of, because looking at also, you were saying that the average ransomware payment can be $131,000, and if you're a small business or a small municipality, that's a lot of money.
It really is. A lot cannot afford it.
Well, looking at some of the other information that we were talking about this morning with the whole ransomware situation, we talked about where it comes from, and of course you mentioned Russia and some of the former Soviet Union countries, but I was surprised to see places like Taiwan, Brazil, India, and Italy, of all places.
Well, it comes from everywhere, but some of the biggest players and a lot of the development of the ransomware software, which is highly sophisticated software, a lot of that development takes place, as I understand it, in Russia.
So the question is, for a lot of us, are any of these people ever caught and punished for what they're doing?
Well, I know the FBI is very, very actively engaged in identifying and finding some way to bring to justice people who are doing it. Some other countries do not pay much attention to it, but I think more and more will, because like any other crime, it may be happening to someone else today, but it'll be happening right at home tomorrow.
When you said that, it kind of reminds me of the old protection payment system that small businesses had to deal with in the community that they operated. It almost seems like a modern tech version of that.
Yeah, this is Scarface revisited in the 21st century.
My goodness. Now, looking at the aspect of catching these people, how can it be stopped? That's where we are now, where people are wanting to know, what can I do to make sure that I'm protected? How can I protect my company, or how can I protect my employer's company?
Well, there are a number of very effective means of accomplishing that. The first is education, as you mentioned earlier. Teach the employees how to recognize bad email, a phishing attack. Another means is to tighten the spam filter. It's better to have a few things that you need wind up in the spam folder and have to be identified manually than it is to have one single phishing email get through and corrupt your network. You need to have good antivirus software on your machine. You need to have, hopefully, if you're a big enough company, you would want something that identifies ransomware by the activity that it causes, not by a identification type system. And then, of course, and I speak of this from personal experience, a good backup is your ultimate fail-safe. A backup that is off-site and protected against any type of ransomware attack.
And so the question is, how expensive now is this for companies to put this protection in? Of course, it can be more expensive if you get a ransomware attack, but how expensive in their daily cost of providing operational expenses? Probably,
you think in terms of $20, $50, $100 a month for smaller companies, and larger companies may be paying $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month. But it's within range to pay an external company to protect your system and to back up your data. Those are two different things, but they both work in concert to make sure that no matter what happens, you can continue to operate without paying ransom to the ransomware criminals.
I like those prices because you think about the cost of doing business, and those are some of the costs that you would pay for maybe insurance, for other aspects of your business. So you're in a good range there as companies are looking at making sure that they are protected, because it seems like these cases are popping up even more frequently. And do you expect for this to be even more of a problem as we move into the future years?
Well, I think hopefully the technology that the good guys are pursuing will keep the bad guys in check, but who knows?
Well, William Bill Oppenheimer, we thank you so much, president of Enveloc, Inc. We thank you for sharing the information, giving us an education, as well as in the long run here, the end run, I should say, how to protect ourselves from ransomware. We thank you for joining us this morning on Perspectives.
Thank you, Eric.
And for more information, contact the local office of the FBI at the number you see there on the screen. Now, you can also contact William Bill Oppenheimer's company, Envelope Incorporated, if you have any questions about protecting your business from cyber attacks at the above phone number and website address. That's Envelope and Incorporated there. Well, next up on Perspectives, we're less than a month away now from Mobile's upcoming municipal elections. We know that you are going to vote, but have you decided how you will cast your ballot? The current coronavirus pandemic has provided us a few options that you may not have considered in the past. Now, some very important deadlines are coming up in the next week or so as relates to registering, absentee ballots, and absentee voting. It's a Perspectives packed with the what's and how-tos of voting information. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Please join us here next Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for Perspectives as we discuss those important issues and seek solutions. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week ahead.
Thanks for watching Fox 10 News. Watch us live wherever you are, on our mobile, our streaming news app, and you can also watch us on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV.